Hey silver tubers, it is MrZeke coming to you from the ammo making bench. I thought I would do a little bit of different video tonight. This is a hobby that comes along with competitive shooting, and what you're looking at is a small time ammo making plant. It is a Dillon square deal, and there's a lot of talk about stacking for the eventual decline or fallout of civilization as a whole, and ammo supply is one of those topics that we talk about. And so I thought I would go through a real quick video on how those of us that make our own ammunition so that we have unlimited supply do what we do. So I'm going to set the camera right here. I don't know how well this is going to come out, and pardon the dirty background. I want to get as close to this press as possible, which means I've got to move some stuff around because I want you to see what happens. So basically, there's four components that go into making a piece of ammunition. There's the piece that we all know. This is brass. This is the casing that holds the other three components. So we start with a piece of brass. The ignition system is a primer, and these come in little sleeves of 100. You can see them there, and if you guys are shooters and not reloaders, and you look at the back of one of your cartridges, you'll notice that silver or gold disc in the back. Let's find a piece of ammo here. That's already loaded. Yes. Okay, so you can see the primer in the center and the back. You have the powder. This is the ignition source that builds the pressure that pushes the bullet out of the barrel of the gun. And then you have your various projectiles, and tonight we'll be loading 9mm, and these are plated bullets. These are extreme plated bullets, 9mm, and I prefer the heavier bullet. These are 147 grain bullets. And so I have a setup here. I'm going to back you up again. I've got my brass on one side. I've got my bullets on the other side. The powder is already in the powder dispenser, and I always find it helpful to mark what brand powder and what weight powder and what the overall length of the cartridge would be when it's finished. A finished round of ammunition is known as a cartridge, not a bullet. A bullet is what goes in the end of the cartridge. And then this is the primer feed mechanism that feeds the primers down into the press. And so I'm going to walk you through step by step what takes place. So the first step is always to lubricate your brass with, and I have various different lubrications that I use. I'm going to pause it and I'm going to grab some of the lubrication that I use. And we're back, and my chosen lubrication is what's called brass butter. I like it. It comes in a non-aerosol pump, and I will just squirt some brass butter on this brass. And I already have the powder dispenser set up to dispense the proper amount of powder. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come around on this side of the press to position number one. In position number one, I'm going to put the piece of brass in here, just like so. And this first position is going to resize this brass, because when a round is fired, the brass expands, and it has that old primer in it. Then we need to get that out. And so this has a decapping pin on the underside here, which is going to go through the brass and push the primer out the bottom. And then the die inside here is going to resize the brass to its original spec, like so. And now this press is going to auto rotate this around And this piece of brass has now been resized to original spec, and it doesn't have a primer anymore. This brass has already been cleaned. It's been tumbled much like we tumble silver. And now on the downstroke, it's going to rotate, and there's a finished round popping out. And now I'm going to push up because that's how I primed it. And by pushing up, the underside of the press here, I'm going to pull this tab out. This is, the lighting is not, I use my trusty reloading knife to pull this pin. These indicator pins or locator pins keep the brass where it needs to be so it doesn't get out of place. But now this piece of brass has been resized and a new primer has been seated. Sorry about, there we go. A new primer has been seated into the primer pocket in the back of the case. And so, let me locate that indicator pin. Alright. And so the next step in reloading a cartridge with a progressive press, which is what this is. This is a medium level press. I used to have a commercial press, a Dillon 1050. I have to seat a bullet here because otherwise in this position, we'll get to that in a second. But now this piece is of brass that we have resized and decapped and reprimed is going to go up into this powder dispenser, and it's going to expand the case mouth and drop a powder charge and rotate around. So now what we have is we have a piece of brass. Let's see if we can get it to focus. It's now got the proper amount of powder. You can see the proper amount of powder in there. The case mouth is slightly flared. If you can see that. See how it's a flare in it. And that is designed so that the bullet will sit in there without falling out. And so we're going to put that back where it goes in its proper position. And here in a second we're going to go ahead and go full speed, but I wanted to do it step by step. So the next step is actually going to push this bullet down into the case the proper depth. So now you can see it's much shorter, and it's going to rotate it around to the last position. Right there, but you still have a little bit of flaring in the case mouth, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we get this case mouth crimped down so that it'll fit in your chamber in your pistol properly. And we're going to do that by running it into the last die. I'm going to catch this one on the way out, and that is how, back this back out here, okay. And that is how a piece of ammunition is made. And it's always important when you're done to make sure that you have made it to within spec so it'll fit in your chamber. And I have several of these. These are called chamber checking blocks. I made these at work, and basically what I did is I took a reamer, which is what a factory will use to ream the chamber in your pistol, and I made a bunch of basically baby chambers, and I want to make sure this drops in, sits below the rim, but not below here, and drops out smoothly. And as a result, now I have a piece of loaded 9mm ammunition, and I did it all myself at home. And so now let's do this. Let's illustrate. Try to figure the best camera angle here. I need to get it out of the way so I can work the lever. But we're going to show how easy it is to produce ammunition at full speed. And if my hand gets in the way, I apologize. But this is far cheaper than buying factory ammunition. A press like this would run you about $450 when it's all said and done, but you're no longer dependent on mass-produced ammunition, and you can make ammunition by buying the basic components at your local gun range if they sell reloading supplies for about half the cost of the ammunition that you will buy. The other side benefit to it is you can tune the ammunition to do whatever you want. And by that I mean, if you want practice ammunition with a little lighter recoil, you can take the recipe that you always work off of. You always want to make sure that you have a good source of reloading data. This is a manual, and this will tell you basically what powder and what your overall length when it's finished should be, and give you basically a short lesson at the beginning of the manual on how ammo is made. And so there are much larger books, but I typically go with the smallest book I can possibly go with. I have the larger manuals, obviously, because I used to do this for a living. At work, I set up an ammo manufacturing plant where we manufacture our own in-house 45 ACP and 380 ammunition that we sell to the public to use to practice with, as well as I have produced my own competition ammo for about 10 years now, but I haven't been shooting. But I just thought I would, I've been watching Tazzy do little other projects, and some of the other silver tubers show off some of the things that they do. This is a hobby from my past that I don't do that much anymore of, but I thought it might provide a little entertainment and a little something different. And as you can see, you can rack up ammunition rather quickly. And this is a very small press. Like I said, the one that I had before I started pouring silver took up this whole bench and would produce about 1,000 rounds. That tells me, that buzzer is my alarm to tell me that I am dangerously low on primers, so it's time to add primers. But as I said before, this is a very small footprint when it comes to reloading machines as a whole. The Dillon square deal is a very small. It's available in most of your major pistol calibers. For those of you that like to shoot 45 or 380 or 9mm or 40 caliber, you can get a Dillon square deal right from Dillon Precision. And so anyway, and in that short amount of time, we created that ammo. So as you can see, in about 10 minutes you can produce a box of 50 rounds very, very simply. It's just a matter of maybe taking a course or reading the introduction to the manual on how to reload ammunition. It's very, very simple. So I appreciate everybody watching along. In the meantime, it's MrZeke, and this time we're coming to you from the ammo making bench instead of the silver pouring bench. In the meantime, everybody be safe, stack well, cheers, we'll talk to you later.